Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Schroeder, publisher of the New Britain Herald and Bristol Press, and welcome to Central Connecticut Now, the show that brings you closer to the newsmakers of our region and those that cover them. Today, my guests are Jerry Luzak. Jerry Luzak,
GT Luzak Insurance.
There we go, the full name.
That's it.
And Steve Glick.
Yes, a pleasure.
And you're with the Chamber Insurance Trust, right?
That's correct. I'm the administrator.
Administrator, there we go. Sometimes keeping the name straight or one thing or another, tough.
That's why we have GT, so I remember.
There you go. Good enough. We're talking insurance today. Most businessmen and women have to deal with that no matter what size their business is, whether there's a self-proprietorship or if there is thousands of people in your organization. The one thing you've got to deal with is health insurance, and it is one big headache, I can tell you that much. These guys here can give us some insight into how to lift that headache from us. Isn't that right?
We try.
Well, let me share with you something very interesting, Mike, is that 60% of the public really doesn't have any irritation or direction with their health care because they're in what's called a self-funded plan, and everything seems to be under control. And what we're trying to do, and ultimately our discussion, will be based on what we can do for smaller businesses to have the same value proposition.
That 60% are the ones that are working for bigger businesses.
That's correct.
That have more kind of what most people would see as old school insurance, that they don't have to worry about it.
Right, but the problem is the 40% of the public have all these different iterations that cause a lot of headache, and they really don't see several things that are very important to them. They don't see transparency and control. They have no control over their health care. So what we're going to share is that this major population that represents the communities that you're part of, the opportunity to take advantage of that and have their rates be controlled and have minimal increases each year and look at a long-term effect on their well-being.
And this is a relatively new thing for smaller businesses.
That's correct.
To be able to, I've always looked at it as kind of self-insurance for the little guy, for being able, for a small business to be able to take advantage of the same things big companies have been doing for years.
Right, but they have the protection. We have protection for them, and that we'll talk about later. But Jerry has a comment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the typically with the smaller businesses from 100 and under, what's been happening in the marketplace is that the rate increases have come down from the insurance carriers, and so the employer has no control over the rate increases other than either passing it on to the employee or raising the deductibles. And that's what we hear is people are afraid to look at their renewals because of the fact that the rate increases are coming, and how am I going to explain this to my employees that I have to raise the deductibles or raise their contributions.
You've been our representative at Central Connecticut Communications, the New Britain Herald and Bristol Press, for years now.
Employers want to provide coverage for their employees because to keep them on the job, so this is a battle that you play back and forth.
But there's silence. You don't know what goes on. What if you did, in a positive way, that you have what we call transparency, knowing that there are things that go on, certain type of prescription that a person uses. What if we were able to say, with a team that we have behind the scenes in this program, to say, listen, why don't you take this prescription rather than the other? That will save your company and save you thousands of dollars. And the other side of it is, from a total marketplace, the analytics, no one has analytics from a small group perspective. You don't know how to plan for the future. So when a person looks at our health plan, they don't look at that year. They look at planning for 3 or 4 years and building a roof and protection that allows them to see that. That's what a captive does. That's why the Chambers of Commerce have helped us build this coalition of businesses across the state and build this captive program called the Connecticut Chamber Healthcare Coalition Health Plan.
Well, one of the things, you bring up the name captive, which has always been a struggle for me. I keep saying, why did they use this name?
Yeah. It's more of a coalition for us.
Well, captive insurance has been used for years with unemployment compensation and other types of insurance. So it's new coming into the health insurance. So I agree with you. A lot of times when I mention the word captive, it's, oh, you're going to tie my hands. You're going to.
Yeah.
What is captive? But it's just a terminology used for insurance. And again, most people use captive insurance for their unemployment comp. It's very common.
Well,
That's why it's really a coalition. And it's tremendously being accepted in how different communities that we're working with and the business community are starting to see, my God, we can do what a big corporation can do now and save thousands of dollars in healthcare. But most importantly, improve the type of healthcare for each employee.
now, one of the things that it has been part of our use in our captive plan is that we've got access to all kinds of like pharmaceutical advice and monitoring to make sure that we're doing things the right way to keep costs down, but to also get your drugs on the right schedule.
Correct.
And without overspending.
Sometimes when we're talking to small businesses and we're referring to controlling the cost, the fear is that we're going to not give coverage, and that's not the case. You want your employees to be healthy, but you want them to be healthy at the most reasonable way of doing it. And one of the ways
Because it saves everybody money.
Saves everybody money.
It isn't just a savings for the employer.
Correct. And then one of the ways that we can fine-tune things, which you experienced, is that for maintenance drugs, you can put it, the mail order is a requirement, and that's happened on a lot of large employers' programs, but the smaller employer doesn't have that benefit. And it's making the news. There's rebates that are embedded in these pharmaceutical contracts. And by having a transparent contract that this program has, you're experiencing the rebates, not the insurance company. And with a typical plan, rebates are going directly to the insurance company. And so by having a transparency in just the pharmaceuticals, you can save thousands of dollars.
The other side, which is really important for you as a business person, is your means of cash flow or paying a premium. Mm-hmm. Under our concept, the employer actually is paying every month about 40% of what is anticipated as a premium in the form of fees. 60% of those, the allocation is held by the employer. Employer has a good experience month, 30-40% of that 60% is retained and not going to the carrier. And some of that reserve continues on, and hopefully if 1 out of every 5 years a company has a bad year, 4 to the 5, some of those dollars stay with the company going into the new year. So the dollars that are allocated are well allocated. You're not paying a profit. There's no one getting a profit out of a program. It is strictly a fee for service program. And the other great thing is we're using local vendors to service the case. Many people have to work with a claim utilization program that has to be on the other side of the country to get an answer by somebody. We have local people, a major third-party administrative company that can work locally for you if you so desire.
Well, it's really important to remind people that there's also mediation through your broker and through the whole chain.
Correct.
And so that if there's a problem, you've got more of a direct connection, or you have a connection to people that can deal with the big boys.
Correct.
With a lot more clout than you could in most situations.
You don't have any clout when you're dealing with a traditional fully insured. And traditional fully insured plans are going to be around. There's nothing to say that that's antiquated. However, for the open-minded business person that's willing to look into this and learn more and have more control, then they're able to save money and provide an excellent benefit for their employees.
The key here is, traditional health insurance sometimes becomes a hassle and affects the well-being of the marketplace. But our program helps build a team effort among the employees, the employer, and the new term, rather than wellness, is well-being. We're building, if we can build an environment for you as an employer and build this well-being type of atmosphere, everyone's part of the team and they feel good. And that, believe it or not, offsets health claims.
There we go.
In an indirect way.
And productivity for employees to come to work and not miss work. That's the bottom line. You hire somebody to do something for you, not to be at
And
home.
you need to get it done.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so if somebody's ill,
Nobody wants anybody to be out of work,
correct,
including the people that are out of work.
right, right, exactly. And so this is, it's all intertwined, and health insurance premiums are probably the number 3 large ticket item for an employer, if not the number 2. And so this is something that is of major concern to most businesses because of the dollars and cents that it really equals.
So
Well,
we
we
take an approach so opposite than the fully insured marketplace because of the engagement and the involvement. Everyone takes a part, but it's not a one-year deal. When we talk to the controller and the president of a company, we're planning a 2 to 3 year program just in the initial stages. And even further education, as you know, Mike, that we have a meeting once a year in Cleveland, Ohio, and to share your results and learn from other businesses just like your own means a lot.
And I hear that they have pretty good ribs in Cleveland, too.
Yeah, they do, right.
Are you ribbing us right now?
Ooh. One of the things we don't want to confuse people. These captive plans use traditional insurance processes.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
They use networks that are common to people.
Networks that you'll get more options than you may even in your normal a traditional insurance plan.
Correct. So, and they're national networks. So it's Cigna and Aetna, to name names, for their national network. So you have a lot of, I would say 99% of the doctors are included. You're not eliminating doctors.
And you're recognized with names people know.
Correct.
Exactly.
Your providers know them. There's no surprises.
We're seeing, we build a means of information to our CSI team, which is a special team that watches the movement that
Not
goes
from
on.
a television program.
Yeah, well, yeah. We have that feeling that is unique to the marketplace. Plus the other side of it is it's like a team approach. As part of a captive or coalition, that you're not alone in that project. And we know that 1 out of 5 years you have a bad year, 4 out of 5 you have a good year. So what happens is that not only do you benefit from lower costs from that 1 year of your own company cost, but if the risks are collectively positive or negative to the claim utilization, the company gets another percentage dollar back to them because they're an owner of the captive.
That's right. Yep.
And that makes it different. And we've had situations where some company would have a bad claim year, but winds up with an offsetting good year from the whole captive group.
Yep.
You can't go to a fully insured plan and say, do I have transparency? You do not have transparency.
So one of the things that we're asked is, will my employees notice anything different? And actually they won't. They go to the same doctor, they whip the card out, pull their card out for when they come to their doctor's office, and there's a copay if that's the plan design that you have. So the utilization is the same as what they currently have. So there's really no difference at the point of service.
But as a
it's
point of
behind.
claim, but behind them
Correct.
is local service and other advisory service from the Roundstone organization to make sure that everything moves in a positive direction.
For the employer that is willing to invest a little bit of their time to be involved instead of just writing the check, they're seeing a very good return of effort.
What's been the history of the last few years between the captive plan and the more traditional?
Unfortunately, the more traditional type of plans have had escalating rates out of control. In fact, if we took a study, and we have charts that we will share with you, showing over a 15, 20-year period, you will see that we had minimal increase of cost because of the captive.
Over how many years?
A 10-year period. What a difference that makes to the employer. So an employer that wants to expand and bring new people into their company, or new technology has to be purchased, gives them the feeling that they're not going to be zonked 1 year with a 30% increase in their premium that can affect all of their cash flow activities.
And have to pass it on to the employee.
Pass it on to the employee.
And the employee's take home is getting less. And this way, by controlling the cost here, you're keeping the cost level for the employee and the employer. So it's a win-win situation. It really is.
So tell me, how do employers start?
Well, they can contact us.
Well, let me share with you in a precise thing. Number one, this was built through the Chambers of Commerce in Connecticut. And this is a coalition of the Chambers of Commerce in Connecticut. But on the other hand, what we had to do and what we're doing is we're looking at a special type of insurance agent. For many years, unfortunately, agents were trained by the carriers, and they were trained in a different way. That's just pricing out, spreadsheeting, and looking at an alternative. What we're looking for are agents, advisors that can spend the time, that can maintain a more steady pace, and then educate the employer and look at all the resources on what by definition, a captive offers to that employer. So an advisor, and we have chosen right now some of the best advisors in the state of Connecticut. I don't want to put this man's head to spin, but
Thanks.
he's a pretty good guy to deal with it.
Well, thanks. I'm turning red. So the process would be, first of all, it's imperative that the business be a member of the Chamber of Commerce because it's a chamber program, and it's the local chamber wherever that is. It can be Central Connecticut, it can be the Valley, whatever. And then from there, we need to sit down and discuss the goals and the positives and the negatives of their current program. And then how can we solve the negatives and emphasize the improvements to the positives.
But the vision of a financial long-term investment and a return on investment needs the help of the president and the comptroller of that particular company.
Correct, because usually the human resource person, and nothing against human resource persons, I like them a lot. They're worried about the benefits. They're worried about the process of enrolling. Sure. They're worried about that thing, that area of it. Whereas the comptroller and the president see the dollars and cents of the program. And
sustainability
correct.
Is one of the things.
That's correct.
And so you need to have the decision makers with the checkbook capability in on it from the beginning, and then they can disperse the responsibilities to whomever they think would be proper.
And we feed them a
business.
lot of information. As I said, they are not held hostage to the unknown.
Many employees see their premium cost on their pay stub and say, this is so expensive for me. Mm-hmm. They don't remember how much of that is already paid for outside of that by their employers.
Well, that's communication, and we find I try to communicate that to the employees, what the employer is doing as much as I can, because the employees typically just see, like you said, the deductions on their paycheck, and they don't realize that the employer is paying 50 to 60% more on top of that. And it's important for us as advisors to make sure that the employees understand that this is just part of the cost, and that they're also part of the problem and part of the solution. The problem is overuse. I'm just using this as an example. They could go to an urgent care place, and it's much less expensive. The rising cost of health care in the United States is unbelievable.
Well, we're thankful that you guys are in the hot seat trying to cool down those hot pricing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We could go on forever, but thank you very much,
Pleasure.
Steve, for coming.
Thanks, Mike.
Jerry.
Appreciate it.
And thank you again for joining us for this edition of Central Connecticut Now. We'll be on next week with a new guest talking about what's going on in this region. So long.